You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. A few days ago, author Smith Minard's first book, Embrace Your Story, A Young Woman's Guide to Discover Who You Are, Where to Go, and Why You Matter, was released. Before her book was released, I had the opportunity to interview Smith about her book, and today's episode features my interview with Smith. I'm here with Smith Minard, who is the author of the book Embrace Your Story. Smith, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah. My name is Smith. It's my first name, not my last name, which is confusing for people. But yeah, like Aaron said, I'm the author of Embrace Your Story, which is a young woman's guide to discover who you are, where to go, and why you matter. So it's kind of geared towards high school to college age girls. However, I think that a lot of people have read the book already, have really enjoyed it, and have taken away something of it. But by day, I'm a high school teacher, so that brings a lot of my passion behind this book. But I'm super excited about it, and it's been definitely my baby. I've been working on it for a while now, and I'm just really excited that people are starting to read it and get their hands on it.
Without spoiling too much of your book, what is the full title of the book, and what will that book be about?
Yeah. So I kind of already said the full title, but it's Embrace Your Story, and then A Young Woman's Guide to Discover Who You Are, Where to Go, and Why You Matter. I call it a nonfiction memoir / self-help because I think it could kind of be tied in between all of those. But really, it is supposed to be a guide for high school to college age girls just to really learn how to navigate life's transitions. I think that when you're navigating through high school and college and then even post grad in that 16 to 22 age range, there just are so many unknowns, and a lot of people aren't talking about how hard it is to deal with all the friend group dynamics and breakups and loneliness and self-doubt. And I know that I went through that, and then now every single day in my work I see girls especially just really struggling with their self-worth, their identity. And so this book it gives a lot of advice and wisdom, and I tell a lot of personal stories, but I also feel like girls that have read it already have told me that it really just feels like somebody is finally listening to them for the first time. So yeah, it's really to help them. It helps them with a lot of tangible things like learning how to get rid of people pleasing in their lives and saying goodbye to comparison, but also just an enjoyable read that is pretty fast and that hopefully leaves them with something to think about after.
Now, is your book going to be? Is it out now, or is it going to be out here in the coming days?
Yeah, in the coming days. It's released on October 24th, but you can.
It's possible this interview might be uploaded after October 24th, so I'm just going to let our listeners know that this interview is being conducted before the release of the book.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So October 24th is the day that it is released, so it might already be released. So definitely go grab it on Amazon. There's also a Kindle version for 99 cents right now, so pretty good deal. So yeah, definitely go grab it.
What was the process of writing and publishing your first book like?
Yeah, it was an interesting process. I have always wanted to do this, but I just had no idea how. And I looked at a lot of different paths, and I ended up signing on with the self-publishing school, which was really, really helpful, I would say, especially for your first book. You kind of have a coach that mentors you through the entire process. And I just don't think I would have known how to do it if it wasn't for him just kind of guiding me every step of the way. But yeah, it started with kind of just getting all my ideas in one place, coming up with the main message, the solution that I'm trying to solve, which is really just all the problems that deal with teen life right now, especially in 2023. And After that, I started just building my chapters. I had writing goals every single week. And then once I finished writing, I feel like that was kind of the easy part. I think the hardest part was getting together all the other stuff, like the back of the book and the cover. Picking a title took me a really long time. But yeah, then they did everything for me. They got it onto Amazon and Kindle Direct Publishing, and it was a super seamless process from there. So I'm super thankful for them.
Now, is it true that your book was the #1 new release on Amazon in the Christian faith category through pre-orders alone?
Yes, that is true. That was super, super exciting just last week. It was #1 new release for like a couple days, which was pretty cool to see for my first book. And so I have a really loyal launch team that was going ahead and pre-ordering, and then they were getting the PDF version and reviewing it on Amazon, which boosts the rating. So yeah, it was super exciting to see it go up in the rankings.
Although your book is written from a Christian perspective, is there anything non-Christians can learn from your book?
Definitely. And I would say that was a big goal with it. Yes, it is written from a Christian perspective because that's a huge part of who I am. And there was sort of no way for me to write about my life without including some of it. But I would say I have tons of friends who are not Christians and have really enjoyed the book and have gained a lot of insight from it. I would say, especially the part about building lifelong friendships. I think that no matter what your values are, we all have values, whether that has to do with a religion or just a life perspective that we have. And I think that just learning how to identify who our friends are and finding friends that have the same values as us, that can really apply to anybody. So I know that chapter was super relatable to people, and there's definitely a lot in there for anybody.
I'm going to go into some non-writing questions to finish out this interview, although some of them are tangibly related to your book.
Yeah.
The first of these is, what is your craziest story from your work as a high school teacher?
Oh my gosh, I have so many crazy stories. Working with high schoolers is an adventure every single day. I'm always tired. I would say, gosh, there's so many to pick from. Um, I will go with, oh gosh, it's hard for me to pick one. I'll go with just a kind of funny story. I teach Spanish in high school. So I'm also fluent in Spanish, and I we were doing an exchange program with a high school in Spain, and so we decided to make these videos for this high school in Spain, and we found out that a recent TikTok trend in Spain was to do this really weird hand motion. You can't see me right now, but it's this kind of up and down with your hand motion. Nobody from the States has ever seen it before, but all my kids started doing it. And so we decided to send that video to them, and they just went absolutely crazy. And then our video went viral on TikTok, which was just funny. But it's never a dull moment. I would say I've had a random kid chugging a gallon of milk in the back of class. I'm like, what are you doing? To just the little moments in the hallway. So lots of funny moments, and I love all my kiddos.
That hand gesture you talked about, it's sort of like the John Cena "you can't see me" gesture, but with the hand motion being up and down instead of side to side.
Yeah, I don't know if I know that one, but that sounds super familiar.
Uh, what do you believe are the biggest problems that teen girls and young women face today?
Gosh, I mean, there's so many things. I say this in my book, and I've said this for the past few years, but I truly think that this is the hardest time in history to be a teenage girl. The obvious ones to say are just the battles of social media and comparison. One of my high school girls, uh, I interview a lot of girls in this book as well, so it's cool to hear from them. But one of them just said, with their social life being so digital, it's as easy to get kicked out of a friend group as just taking somebody out of a group text. So I would say yeah, just the fact that online people don't feel like real people and they feel like they can say whatever they want. It's proven that girls struggle with body image more when they spend more time on Instagram and social media. So it's a huge struggle. I was in high school when phones were a thing, but it wasn't as much of a thing now. Instagram had just started, so it was not the same level. And I would say just the fact that they are constantly looking at other girls and not focused on their present life, that's it's a huge struggle. And we can see it in our world. We can see the anxiety and depression rates that have gone up so much since COVID. And I do attribute a lot of that to social media. I also think social media has done some amazing things for our society. But I talk a lot about it a lot in the book. I have a whole chapter on social media and just kind of talk about how we can navigate it, how we can use it for good, and how we can also live our lives in the present moment.
Yeah, I graduated high school back in 2008, and
Hmm.
that was when MySpace was in its infancy. That was
Yep.
the first big social media
Yep.
platform of note.
Yep.
I was probably the last of the people that sort of graduated out of high school in a kind of became of age in a world where social media was not a totally dominant part of most people's lives.
Yeah, definitely.
My
Yeah, I
last.
graduated.
Oh, sorry. Go
Nope.
ahead.
Okay. I graduated in 2015, so it was definitely the beginning of it all, but I think I still had it way easier than these girls do now.
My final question is: you grew up in Georgia? Am I
Hmm.
correct? Now, what was
Yes.
the biggest culture shock for you when you moved to the Pacific Northwest?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I'm still in shock sometimes. No, it's overall it's been amazing. It's not as rainy as everybody says, although I'm looking out the window right now and it is raining. But gosh, I think the biggest shock was probably just the little interactions. I would say once you get to know people here, they really are quite friendly and welcoming. And I had a ton of people who knew me through mutual friends, really welcomed me into their world and into their families. But just the little interactions, I think in Georgia, we tend to just kind of say hi to people on the street and ask how they are. And at grocery stores, people ask you what you're doing that day. And here people would be like, that's too personal, I don't want to tell you about that. So yeah, people here definitely keep to themselves a little bit more, but I've learned how to crack the code a little bit, and I try not to let my southern charm just totally go away when I'm out here, and I still try to say hi to people, but I probably have accustomed a bit. But yeah, definitely those little daily interactions, that was a huge culture shock.
Smith, you are a wonderful guest for this podcast. I
Mhm.
thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author podcast, and I wish you all the success with your new book.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
For Kindle Unlimited members, Embrace Your Story is, as of the date this episode was uploaded, available on Kindle Unlimited. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/author AAC. You can follow me on Facebook at Author AAC and on Instagram at AAC Scribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.